Hello and welcome to MAGA, the podcast. Now, this is not your racist uncle's MAGA. Our MAGA stands for I'm an Angry Asshole, the cult of Donald Trump. And I am your host, the disgusted American. Our mission is to show how Don the Con bamboozled a nation. Our goal is to make sure that the cult of MAGA goes down in flames by 2028, to stop it before MAGA becomes unstoppable and our democracy further decays into a dictatorship. If we want the cult of MAGA to end, we have to know how it began and why it spread. We have to go back to Trump 1.0, the election of 2016. In our last episode, we reviewed the concept of framing, which is to paint an issue in a particular way. It is the essence of what a good con man does to elicit an emotional response. We took a look at framing at the individual level and at the social level through a concept known as the Overton window, which can help us understand how fringe theories evolve from the sidelines to mainstream and impact policy. Trump is a master of framing, whether we're talking about immigration, denying climate change, witch hunt, or fake news, draining the swamp. All these things that Trump has kind of entered into the national language are things that he has been able to frame on his own terms. And it's had a huge impact on our nation and what we do. In this episode, we're going to take a look at a failure of frame. What happens when you don't frame an issue on your terms? And it's happening right now in 2025 with the Epstein files. The big question is, if Trump is such a master of framing, why can't he effectively frame the Epstein files? Why can't he get this particular issue perceived in the way that he wants, on his terms, the way he gets almost everything else? Let's take a look at Trump's first framing attempt when it came to Epstein. And this happened back in 2019. When Epstein was arrested on federal sex trafficking charges. Here's what Trump had to say at the time.
I had a falling out with him a long time ago. I don't think I've spoken to him for 15 years. I wasn't a fan. I was not, a long time ago. I'd say maybe 15 years. I was not a fan of his. That I can tell you. I was not a fan of his.
I'm not a fan and we're not friends. What he neglected to say was that he used to be a huge fan and they used to be close friends. They were friends for a long time, through the late 80s all the way through the early 2000s. In the 90s, the two publicly partied at Mar-a-Lago, and they went to Victoria's Secret angel shows together. They had trips between New York and Florida on Epstein's private jet. And in 2002, Trump told New York Magazine, "I've known Jeff for 15 years. Terrific guy. He's a lot of fun to be with. It is even said that he likes beautiful women as much as I do. And many of them are on the younger side." Epstein's infamous Black Book had Trump's personal phone number as well as Melania's. Trump's name appeared 7 times in the passenger logs of Epstein's planes. The convicted pedophile even boasted of his closeness to Trump and his now wife Melania by claiming the first time he slept with her was on my plane. The plane that was dubbed the Lolita Express. Lolita is a story about a teacher who falls in love with his underage student. Now, Epstein spoke at length about Trump with the author Michael Wolff in August 2017, 2 years before he was found dead in his jail cell. At the time, Wolff was researching his bombshell bestseller, Fire and Fury. Wolff said he had up to 100 hours of recordings of interviews with Epstein, and parts of the audio were obtained by the Daily Beast. Here's how Jeffrey Epstein described his relationship to Donald Trump.
So how do you know this?
So he claimed to be his best friend for 10 years, and he even claimed intimate knowledge of Trump's proclivity for sex. Here's how Epstein described Trump to Wolff.
He's not a horrible human being. He rejected his brother. He does nasty things to his best friends' wives. Anyone who He first tries to gain your trust, and then he uses it to do bad things. That's how it goes.
On one occasion, Epstein alleged that Trump took a woman to what was called the Egyptian Room in an Atlantic City casino. Epstein alleged, and I quote, he came out afterward and said, "It was great. It was great. The only thing I really like to do is fuck the wives of my best friends. This is just the best," end quote. Wolf also said that Epstein showed off photos of Trump with topless young women who were sitting in his lap. So we've got a huge disconnect here between Trump's words and Epstein's. Trump says he's not a fan, and he's trying to create distance by saying they were friends a long time ago. But Epstein claimed that they were the best of friends, and that Trump likes to cuck his friends and be surrounded by topless young girls. Seems like a classic he said, he said. And so Trump, we would think, would be able to distance himself quite easily by claiming that Epstein is crazy, or was crazy, and that Trump himself was not a creepy perv. But here's the problem with that frame. The problem Trump has is that he has a very long and public history of being a creepy perv. To adult women, to teenagers, and even underage girls. Now let's start with adults. 27 women have made accusations against the president of sexual misconduct, all of which he denies. The latest was Stacey Williams, who accused Trump of groping her while Jeffrey Epstein watched back in 1993. Most of these attacks that are alleged occurred when Trump and Epstein were buds, right up until the mid-2000s. Now, of these 27 cases, a jury even found Donald Trump liable for sexual abuse.
In the meantime, former President Donald Trump is liable for sexually assaulting writer E. Jean Carroll and defaming her by calling her a liar.
That is the verdict from a civil jury in Manhattan after just 3 hours of deliberations, and Trump must pay her $5 million in damages.
And later, another jury awarded her an additional $83 million because they found that Trump had intentionally damaged Carroll's reputation. And so this case is interesting because it highlights the difference between the court of public opinion and the court of law. Carroll's allegations had been mocked and dismissed by Trump for years. But in court, he got his ass handed to him multiple times. Same thing with the election of 2020 and all of his claims of the election being stolen. While he was able to run around and scream about this on every show he can get onto, in court, he was never able to get a case to stick. And over 50 times, his cases were denied and outright dismissed. Now, in this whole thing about Trump being a creepy perv with adults, there's also his long and extensive history of appearing on the Howard Stern Show.
The last couple of years, I go out with somebody, and she's like 21, and she's talking about, what are you doing? And she's studying algebra.
So what?
And it's like, it was always embarrassing for me to walk in. It's too young. 30's like a perfect age.
Absolutely. She has enough life experience. She's 35. Too much life experience.
35. What is it at 35, Howard? It's called checkout time.
Levels of beauty that you wouldn't believe. And they're really, some incredible, beautiful women. They'll walk up and they'll flip their top.
Ooh.
Wow. And they'll flip their panties.
Oh.
The boob job is terrible. They look like two light bulbs coming out of a body. A person who's flat-chested is very hard to be a 10, okay?
Right.
It has to be extraordinary. Go out with Marcia Cross, or would you turn gay, Howard?
I would go out with Marcia Cross.
Okay.
She's got a good body. Just put a bag on her head.
In addition to all this, Trump also had conversations with Stern about having sex with women on their periods. They talked about threesomes. Stern once called Trump's bedroom the Rainbow Coalition because he slept with so many different kinds of women. And Trump once said, and I quote, "No, I believe people like sex a lot. People like you, people like me, Tiger," end quote. Talking about Tiger Woods in that case. So again, creepy perv on full display, not just a couple of times, but over the course of decades on the Howard Stern Show. All right, so continuing down the list of creepy shit Trump did with adult women, he also bought several beauty pageants, including Miss USA and Miss Universe. And then he perved hard on the contestants.
You own this pageant, you go over, you look, you're meeting the girls and stuff. One of them comes up to you and says, Mr. Trump, you're a very sexy man.
You're a beautiful man. You have fantastic hair.
Well, you're a powerful man, right? Right? You're a powerful man.
Right.
I want to sleep with you. Now, you're not the type that would say no.
I don't want to hurt their feelings.
No, I mean, some of these foreign girls, Mr. Trump, in my country, we say hello with the vagina. And
What you could also say, as the owner of the pageant, it's your obligation to do that.
So you have done that. Now,
I'll tell you the funniest is that I'll go backstage before a show.
Yes.
And everyone's getting dressed and ready and everything else. And, no men are anywhere. And I'm allowed to go in because I'm the owner of the pageant, and therefore I'm inspecting it. I'm inspecting. Right, I want to make sure that
like
everything is good.
You're there.
Yeah, the dress. Is everyone okay? They're standing there with no clothes. Is everybody okay? And you see these incredible-looking women. And so I sort of get away with things like that.
Now, eventually, 5 former contestants from these pageants claimed that Trump perved on them. And when Stern co-host Robin Quivers, he asked Trump if sleeping with contestants would be a conflict of interest. Here's what he said.
Well, couldn't that be construed, however, as
conflict?
Yes.
I don't see it as a conflict.
It could be a conflict of interest, but it's the kind of thing you worry about later.
Oh, I see.
You tend to think about the conflict a little bit later on.
The question is, how can it not be construed?
But wait, there's more. When Trump was on The Apprentice, the Associated Press reported that during his years on the show, he repeatedly demeaned women with sexist language. He rated female contestants by the size of their breast, and he talked about which ones he wanted to have sex with. Speaking about women in general, he said of his ex-wife, Marla Maples, and I quote, "Nice tits, no brains," end quote. He called Fox News anchor Megyn Kelly a bimbo and a lightweight. Months after Princess Diana was killed in a car accident in 1997, Trump told Stern he thinks he could have slept with her.
Lady Di was truly a woman with great beauty.
You would have slept with her
a couple of times.
Would you have slept with her?
Without even hesitation.
And let's not forget the whole thing with Stormy Daniels. That whole Trump's a 34-time felon, this was about this particular scandal with him paying hush money to a porn star. And this was not a good experience for Stormy. Here's how she described it.
He told me I reminded him of his daughter. I felt like he was being sympathetic to me. Ivanka is beautiful and she's blonde, and I'm sure she's had people assume that she's an idiot. But I felt like as this father figure who has watched his daughter be treated a certain way could identify with me. I thought we had this mutual respect, which is why it was so crazy when, having no red flags whatsoever in a conversation, I came out of a bathroom to find myself cornered. I don't remember how I got on the bed. It was awful.
As I remembered more of that, it still makes me, it narrows down the window of what I remember and don't remember. There's still a tiny part that I don't. And if what I have blocked out and have now started to remember is so terrible, what am I still not remembering?
And we also can't forget the infamous Access Hollywood tape that emerged during the campaign of 2016, where Trump described his attempt to seduce a married woman.
I moved on her, and I failed. I'll admit it. Whoa. I did try and fuck her. She was married.
Huge news there.
No, Nancy. Yeah. No, this was... And I moved on her very heavily. In fact, I took her out furniture shopping. She wanted to get some furniture. I said, I'll show you where there's some nice furniture. I took her out furniture. I moved on her like a bitch. But I couldn't get there. And she was married. And all of a sudden, I see her. She's now got the big phony tits and everything. She's totally changed her look.
She's your girl's hot as shit. In the purple.
Whoa.
Yes.
Whoa.
Yes, the Donald scored.
Whoa.
Oh, my man.
Maybe it's a different one.
Better not be in the publicist. No, it's her.
Yeah, that's her, with the gold. I gotta use some Tic Tacs just in case I start kissing her. I'm automatically attracted to beautiful. I just start kissing them. It's like a magnet. You just kiss. I don't even wait. And when you're a star, they let you do it. You can do anything.
Whatever you want.
Grab them by the pussy. I can do anything.
And finally, we have Stern and Robin Quivers referring to Trump as a sexual predator on the air.
You know about sexual predators and things like that. I mean...
you are one.
All right, I was going to say that. But it's true.
Now, he's sitting there with Robin and Howard and Ivanka, and everybody's laughing. But they're not kidding. Now, if all of this is not disturbing enough, let's take a look at what happened when Trump slides down the age scale, talking about teenagers and underage girls. In addition to buying Miss USA and Miss Universe, he also bought the Miss Teen USA pageant. And in 2016, several of the contestants claimed that Trump stormed into the room when they were changing during the 1997 pageant. And some of these girls were as young as 15 years old. Victoria Hughes, one of the accusers, said it was inappropriate. Mariah Bellotto claimed that she remembers putting on her dress really quickly because she was thinking, oh my God, there's a man in here. The former Miss Vermont Teen USA contestant claims that Trump said, and I quote, "Don't worry, ladies, I've seen it all before," end quote. Now, later as an adult, she said, "I would never let my daughter run for a pageant that he owns." One of the other contestants, who was anonymous and 17 years old, said, "At the time, you're a teenager. You're intimidated. It's Donald Trump. He runs the pageant." She said it felt like it was his given right to enter the dressing rooms because he owned the pageant. She said, and I quote, "We were all very young, but even at the time, it caught us as funny. And now as an adult and a mother, she finds it absolutely inappropriate." When talking about his age limit on sexual partners, here's what Trump had to say.
I'd have a great wife. But if I weren't married, I'd be able to get all of the girls I want, except for possibly Robin.
Do you think you could now be banging 24-year-olds?
Oh, absolutely.
Would you do it?
I have no problem.
Yeah, do you have an age limit, or would you?
No, I have no age. I mean, I have an age. I don't want to be
the
like
upper bracket
Foley with 12-year-olds.
So his lower range is not 12 years old. That's super creepy, right? This is a grown man talking about his lower age limit for sexual partners, and he says, well, not 12. I wish that was the worst of it, but here's what he said to a 10-year-old girl.
You're going up the escalator? I'm going to be dating her in 10 years. Can you believe it?
He says he'll be dating her in 10 years. This is a little kid, right? Who talks that way with a little kid? Is creepy as hell. Another example is a brief in the Chicago Tribune in December of 1992, where Trump is described as having spotted a youth choir singing Christmas carols at the Plaza Hotel in Manhattan. He asked the two girls how old they were, and when they said they were 14, Trump, who was at the time 46 years old, said, "Wow, just think, in a couple of years, I'll be dating you." A couple of years, puts them at 16 years old, right? So again, these are children that he's saying this to. And in 1999, when he was on Howard Stern, here's what he said about a deal he made with his daughter, Ivanka.
Donald, do you worry because you have a daughter who's a model?
I do, and I have a deal with her. She's just 17, and she's doing great, Ivanka, and she made me promise or swear to her that I would never date a girl younger than her. So as she grows older,
right,
the field is getting very limited severely.
Yeah, I mean, the nerve of her. Now you can't go out with 16-year-olds.
So he won't date anyone younger than her, right? But 17 years old, still a minor. And now we get to the creepiest part of what Trump has done. The part that really gets me disgusted. He has repeatedly and publicly lusted after his daughter.
What's the favorite thing you have in common with your father?
Either real estate or golf.
Donald, with your daughter?
Well, I was going to say sex, but I can't relate that.
Donald Trump repeatedly points out how hot his daughter is, saying last year in a Rolling Stone article, "Yeah, she's really something, and what a beauty, that one. If I weren't happily married and, her father."
My daughter, Ivanka.
Yeah.
She's 6 feet tall. She's got the best body.
Yeah, she's hot. She looks more voluptuous than ever.
She's actually always been very voluptuous.
Above and beyond all this, he also said, and I quote, "Ivanka is a great, great beauty. Every guy in the country wants to go out with my daughter, but she's got a boyfriend." He said this in a profile for New York Magazine back in 2004. While president, Trump even made sexual comments about his daughter Ivanka in front of employees that were so lewd and disturbing that he was rebuked by his one-time chief of staff, John Kelly, former Trump official who wrote in a new book, and I quote, Aides said he talked about Ivanka Trump's breast, her backside, and what it might be like to have sex with her. Remarks like that prompted Kelly to remind the president that Ivanka was his daughter. This is written by Miles Taylor, a former chief of staff at the Department of Homeland Security, in his book. And it gets creepier, unfortunately. Here's how Trump described his daughter while talking again to Howard Stern.
My daughter is beautiful, Ivanka.
By the way, your daughter,
She's beautiful.
can I say this? A piece of ass.
Yeah.
So he refers to his daughter as a fine piece of ass. And just when you think it can't get any worse, here's what he had to say on The View.
If Ivanka weren't my daughter, perhaps I'd be dating her. You know?
Stop it. Oh, it's so weird. Stop. You know what? You're known for saying outrageous things, Mr. Trump. Who are you, Woody Allen?
He's talking about dating his daughter. Any of my listeners who have daughters, just think about this. How would you feel if someone talked this way about your daughter? If one of the parents talked this way about her daughter? Right? It's super creepy and pervy. And just as you think it couldn't get any more gross than him saying he would date his daughter if she wasn't his daughter, I also remind you, Melania was pregnant with Barron when he said this. So Trump's framing of the Epstein files, this initial framing of he's not a fan and they're not good friends and he's not a creepy perv, didn't hold water because Trump has a long history of being a creepy perv. I want to switch gears a bit before we get to the end of today's episode to talk about the most recent framing attempt. What's happening right now? A couple weeks back, Trump had his former personal lawyer meet with Ghislaine Maxwell, Epstein's co-conspirator, who used to get the underage girls for Epstein and molested several herself, which is why she was sent to jail for 20 years. But this is what happened a few weeks back.
And we begin in Florida, where Deputy Attorney General Todd Blanche will meet again today with Ghislaine Maxwell, accomplice of convicted sex offender Jeffrey Epstein. It comes as House Speaker Mike Johnson does not appear to be in agreement with President Trump. As we reported yesterday, he tells our Major Garrett on the takeout that the Epstein case is not a hoax.
If I had these things in my possession, I would have put them out a long time ago. But I would also have been very careful to protect the innocent. You know, it's the standard in law enforcement, in the courts, and in government agencies that you do protect the innocent victims, for example, of sex trafficking and horrific crimes. We don't want their names exposed because they would be subjected to more harm. And so you have to be careful in how you do that. But at the same time, maximum transparency, all credible evidence, we have to keep pushing for that.
So what do we know about this meeting between the Deputy Attorney General and Ghislaine Maxwell?
Good morning, Michael. Well, as you noted, it will continue today. Now, you might recall in his post earlier this week when he announced that the DOJ would be reaching out to Maxwell, he said, if Maxwell has information about anyone who has committed crimes against victims, the DOJ will hear what she has to say. Now, I spoke to a former federal prosecutor when this initial request was made about it. He described it as very unusual, but also noted that typically a cooperating co-defendant's comments or testimony is ordinarily treated as unreliable without cooperation just because of the strong incentive to try and obtain leniency.
After Trump's lawyer went to talk to her, she was moved to a posh Club Fed facility in Texas. So we're getting a preview of the next framing attempt, how Trump is going to try to play this now that the I'm not a creepy perv defense isn't working. So he's going to get her to name names. She's going to offer a list. And Trump will claim that whatever she offers is the full list. And her list will conveniently exclude Trump and his friends. And then Trump's going to declare case closed. And pray that people stop asking questions about this. This is what's going to happen over the next couple of weeks. So that's all we've got for this week. If you want to help out the channel, please subscribe or follow the podcast on your preferred podcasting platform and tell your fellow disgusted Americans where they can find us to give us a listen. If you have a few moments, please leave us a rating on your platform so more folks can find the show. Appreciate you tuning in. Hope you have a great night. Talk to you again soon, folks. Ciao. Bye for now.